Imagine a small mountain town blanketed in snow, where the cold cuts through even the strongest coats. One morning, a devoted police officer named Logan Pierce discovers something that will change his life forever. Beneath a frost-covered pine, a tiny German shepherd puppy lies shivering, clutching a battered teddy bear, abandoned and alone in the winter storm. Will Logan be able to save him? Can trust and hope be restored to a broken little heart? Watch as this unlikely pair faces the cold, fear, and the challenges of survival. Tell us where you are watching from and leave a comment. We want to hear from you. The morning fog clung stubbornly to the slopes of Silver Pine, a small mountain town where the evergreens bowed under fresh snow and the streets gleamed with ice. The sky was a muted gray, the kind that made even the strongest sun seem shy. Snowflakes drifted lazily, yet each gust of wind carried a sharp bite that bit at exposed skin. Logan Pierce, 38, a ruggedly tall man with broad shoulders and a weathered face marked by years of solitary patrols, gripped the steering wheel of his patrol truck, eyes scanning the snow-covered road. His dark hair was flecked with frost, and the sharp scar above his left eyebrow told a story of long-ago missteps in the line of duty. He had a quiet, steady demeanor, though those who knew him well understood the depths of his grief. His wife had died in a winter accident 5 years prior, leaving him hollow in ways he seldom spoke of. Driving along the winding mountain path, the crunch of tires on packed snow filled the silence, interrupted only by the occasional distant hum of life in Silver Pine, the low rumble of a snowplow, the faint bark of a dog, the scraping of shovels against icy sidewalks. Logan's gloved hands tightened on the wheel as his thoughts drifted. Winter always reminded him of what he had lost. He had grown accustomed to the solitude, the bitter cold, and the constant hum of the town preparing for another long season. Yet today, there was something heavier. A faint, desperate sound broke through the monotony, a soft, whimpering cry, almost swallowed by the wind. Logan froze, straining his ears. The sound came again, weak but unmistakable, coming from a slope beside the road near a cluster of snow-laden pines. His heart quickened, instincts sharpening. Sliding the truck into a shallow ditch at the side of the road, he threw open the door and stepped into the snow, boots crunching as he moved closer. Each step revealed a small trail of tiny paw prints partially covered by new snow. Under a low-hanging pine, half buried beneath frost and discarded debris, Logan's gaze fell on a creature so fragile it seemed impossible it had survived the night. A German shepherd puppy, perhaps 6 months old, with a smoky gray and black coat matted with ice and grime. A thin white stripe ran unevenly down its chest as if painted carelessly. The puppy's eyes were mismatched, one a pale icy blue, the other a deep, sorrowful brown. Its tiny body shivered violently, ribs sharp beneath thin skin, paws scraped and bleeding from contact with the frozen ground. Clutched between its front paws was a small, worn teddy bear, torn and filthy, the only thing that seemed to anchor it to the world. Logan's chest tightened. He knelt slowly, careful not to frighten the trembling creature. "Hey there, buddy," he whispered, voice rough but gentle, reaching out one hand. The puppy flinched, tensed, but did not run. Its strength had long since been worn away. Logan slipped off his heavy coat and wrapped it around the puppy, feeling its fragile warmth seep through the fabric. It was ice cold, light as a bundle of old rags, yet somehow alive, waiting. He scooped the puppy into his arms, careful of the sharp bones beneath soft fur, and as he walked back to the truck, he noticed the teddy bear slip from its grasp. The first sound the puppy had made since being discovered, a small, anxious whimper, escaped its throat. It wasn't for itself, but for the bear. Logan adjusted the toy under its chin, feeling a painful ache swell in his chest. "You're not trash," he murmured, eyes misting. "Not you." The words tasted bitter, echoing a truth he had once longed to hear for himself. The drive back to his trailer, perched at the edge of Silver Pine, was silent except for the low rumble of the engine. Snow fell steadily outside, coating the town in a quiet hush. Logan glanced down. The puppy's eyes were slowly closing, exhaustion overtaking fear. The little bear remained snug beneath its chin, a tiny beacon of familiarity in a world that had been cruel and indifferent. Arriving home, Logan tracked snow and slush across the linoleum, ignoring the mess as he set the puppy gently on the old threadbare couch. Shadow, as Logan began to call him, seemed too weary even to acknowledge the new surroundings. His paws were raw and bleeding, his fur rough and tangled, but beneath it, Logan could see the fight to survive that still pulsed in his chest. He filled a chipped bowl with warm water, and Shadow, trembling, approached with tentative steps, lapping cautiously, savoring each swallow. Logan prepared soft scrambled eggs, placing them beside the water. Shadow sniffed, pawed once, then nibbled mechanically, unsure if the food was real, if warmth and care were real. Logan's hands shook as he watched, memories of loss and helplessness pressing down on him. Logan's apartment had always been a place of solitary comfort, quiet and predictable. Now, with Shadow curled against the couch, the small bear clutched between paws, the room pulsed with fragile new life. Logan took an old towel and gently wiped grime from the puppy's fur, careful of raw paws and sharp ribs. Underneath the matted coat, Shadow's fur was thick and resilient, waiting to grow healthy again. The faint ring around his neck hinted at a collar violently removed long ago, a mark of someone who had cared little for him. Rage and grief surged through Logan, but he forced himself to breathe slowly. Shadow needed calm, consistency, presence. Things Logan hadn't felt he had left to give. Yet as he folded the towel and leaned back, Shadow edged closer, pressing a cold, wet nose to the back of his hand. Logan allowed himself a rare thought. Maybe there was still a part of him worth saving after all. Night fell. Snow swirled against the trailer walls, wind rattling the windows like ghostly fingers. Shadow, exhausted, curled in the corner of the couch, still clutching the teddy bear. Logan spread a comforter on the floor, recalling how his son Danny had once refused to sleep apart from him after movie nights, small acts of trust that left indelible impressions. Shadow, after a hesitant shuffle, approached and laid against the side of Logan's bed. Teddy bear dropped momentarily, signaling a fragile hope. Logan extended a hand, resting it gently on Shadow's tense back. Slowly, muscle by muscle, tension eased. Neither slept much that night. Every siren, every passing vehicle stirred Shadow, but each time he pressed closer to Logan, seeking reassurance. By morning, sunlight filtered weakly through grimy windows, illuminating Shadow sprawled awkwardly against Logan's leg, teddy bear snug under paw. Logan brewed coffee, the warmth filling the tiny trailer. Shadow lifted his head and yawned, a jaw-breaking yawn that made Logan laugh despite the ache in his chest. "Morning, partner," he whispered, ruffling Shadow's ears. Tail thump, a quiet rhythm of connection, the first real sign that trust, though tentative, had begun to grow. By the end of that day, Logan had discovered something profound. In the midst of winter, amidst loss and solitude, two broken things could find warmth, could survive together, and perhaps, in each other, find a reason to hope again. Snow continued to fall over Silver Pine, coating rooftops and streets in pristine white, while the low winter sun struggled to pierce the gray clouds. Inside his small trailer, Logan Pierce, still wearing his frost-lined coat, carefully set Shadow on a faded, threadbare couch near the heater. Shadow's small body shivered violently as he hugged the tattered teddy bear closer. Logan could see the sharp outline of ribs beneath the dirty fur, the raw red of his paws, the faint ring around his neck where a collar had clearly been yanked off. The puppy was no older than 6 months, yet the weight of the world pressed into every line of his body. Logan ran a hand along Shadow's back, feeling the tremors and the tiny thump of a heart that had endured more than a creature so young should ever know. Logan himself carried scars invisible to the eye. Since losing his wife in a winter accident 5 years ago, he had lived in a kind of muted limbo, going through the motions of life but feeling the chill of solitude in every moment. Shadow, fragile and fearful, mirrored that quiet ache, and Logan recognized a strange kinship in the pup's wide, wary eyes. "All right, little guy," Logan murmured, reaching for a chipped bowl. Warm water filled it to the brim, steam curling like tiny ghosts over the surface. Shadow sniffed cautiously, pawing at the edge before leaning forward and taking hesitant, trembling sips. Each small gulp made Logan wince at the thought of the nights the puppy had gone without food or warmth. He returned to the kitchen, retrieved eggs from the fridge, and scrambled them soft, just enough for Shadow to nibble safely. Shadow pawed at the plate, sniffed, and finally ate in slow, mechanical bites, as if he couldn't quite believe the warmth and nourishment were real. Logan's hands shook, whether from cold, fear, or the surge of emotions he had spent years suppressing, he couldn't tell. He knelt beside Shadow, brushing a few clumps of frost and grime from the coat along the puppy's spine. Beneath the tangled matting, Logan saw promising thickness in the fur, a hint of what life had intended for him before cruelty intervened. The paws, raw and cracked, bore the scars of pavements and wires, of the streets he had been abandoned to. He carefully ran his fingers along the ringed scar of the neck, closing his eyes to contain the sudden flare of anger that threatened to rise. Someone had been careless, cruel, or perhaps outright indifferent, and Logan's chest tightened in quiet fury. Shadow flinched slightly at the touch, his mismatched eyes wide, yet he didn't flee. There was a flicker of something Logan hadn't expected, trust, or at least curiosity. Logan leaned back, stretching long, tense limbs, letting Shadow settle closer. The puppy nudged a cold nose against his hand, tiny muscles quivering, and Logan allowed himself a fragile smile. Perhaps there was still a piece of warmth left in him to give. Time passed slowly. Shadow explored the trailer cautiously, pawing at corners, sniffing the heater, circling the couch several times before curling into a small ball with the teddy bear clutched between his paws. Logan observed silently, learning the rhythm of a creature whose life had been a series of cold, harsh lessons. Shadow did not whine, nor did he bark. He existed in measured moments, conserving energy, conserving trust, holding on to the only constant he had left. When Logan finally settled at the small kitchen table, a mug of bitter coffee warming his hands, he watched Shadow slowly inch closer, the small body trembling, until finally he rested his head on the edge of the couch nearest to Logan. It was not a leap of faith, but a cautious negotiation, each side feeling out the limits of the other. Logan whispered softly, "You're safe here, Shadow. Nobody's going to hurt you now." The words felt heavy in his chest, heavier than any weapon or authority he had ever wielded on duty. He spoke them not only for Shadow but for himself, acknowledging a vulnerability he had long denied. Night deepened over Silver Pine. The wind whistled through the trees, rattling the trailer siding like ghosts wandering the forest. Logan lit the old oil lamp, casting a flickering glow across the room. Shadow lay curled against the couch, teddy bear pressed to his chin, occasionally letting out a tiny sigh of relief or shiver. Logan made a careful bed on the floor with a thin comforter, an old habit from the days his son Danny had refused to sleep in his crib. Shadow's ears flicked up at the movement, eyes tracking every motion. Finally, the puppy tentatively stepped onto the comforter, sat for a moment, and then, as if satisfied by Logan's presence, lay down partially atop it, never letting the teddy bear stray far. The hours crawled. Logan kept one ear open for sirens or the crunch of snow outside. Shadow adjusted each time Logan moved, small paws twitching, but remaining steadfast. Logan occasionally reached out a hand, allowing the puppy to choose whether to touch or retreat. Slowly, muscle tension eased, and the puppy pressed a bit closer each time. By the time the faint light of dawn filtered through frost-smeared windows, Shadow had become a fixture in Logan's small, cramped world, a creature of hope in a place long devoid of warmth. Morning brought a silver-blue hue across Silver Pine, the town muffled by layers of fresh snow. Logan brewed coffee, the smell filling the trailer like a promise, while Shadow sat, ears perking, eyes following each movement with cautious curiosity. The puppy yawned widely, stretching legs still weak from hunger and cold. Logan chuckled despite the ache in his chest. "Morning, partner," he murmured, ruffling the small head. Shadow's tail thumped once, a quiet rhythm, but full of meaning, first tangible sign of connection. Breakfast was slow. Shadow ate scrambled eggs in careful, deliberate bites, occasionally glancing up to ensure Logan remained near. Logan ate little, preoccupied with thoughts, hands absently stroking Shadow's coat. The bond, fragile and fledgling, was beginning to solidify in these quiet domestic rituals. Each shared glance, each cautious approach, was a brick in a foundation of trust that had begun to grow between a broken man and a creature who had known only abandonment. By mid-morning, Shadow ventured further, exploring the corners of the trailer, sniffing cautiously at shelves and the heater vent, occasionally nudging the teddy bear. Logan followed, allowing space but observing closely, learning the puppy's preferences, fears, and moments of tentative curiosity. Shadow began responding to subtle cues, a soft word, a gesture of hand toward food or warmth, the gentle press of a lap to rest against. Logan realized the immense patience and consistency required, but the reward was evident in the quiet moments when Shadow's eyes softened, when the tremor in his body eased, when the tail thumped a steady beat. That evening, Logan watched snow accumulate against the windows, hearing the distant rumble of town life muted by the storm. Shadow had settled into a rhythm, resting near the couch during Logan's small chores, curling against his side at night, never demanding, never expecting, simply existing, learning to trust again. Logan felt a fragile hope bloom, recognizing that the tiny life before him was teaching him something profound about resilience, patience, and the healing power of presence. As the lamp flickered low, casting elongated shadows across the walls, Logan reflected quietly on the parallel between his own grief and Shadow's battered existence. Perhaps, he thought, they could mend together, slowly. Snow continued to drift outside, and within the small trailer, warmth spread not from fire alone, but from the fragile bond forming between a broken man and a broken puppy. The morning sun had yet to fully rise over Silver Pine, but the world outside Logan Pierce's trailer glimmered with fresh snow, the kind that muffled sound and made even familiar streets feel untouched and secret. Logan stretched, stiff from a night of fitful sleep beside Shadow, and glanced down at the small German shepherd pup curled near the couch. Shadow's mismatched eyes, one icy blue, one warm brown, followed Logan's movements, alert yet cautious. His tiny paws had begun to show faint signs of healing, but the raw red patches and faint scars reminded Logan how fragile the puppy still was. Logan pulled on his thick navy jacket and laced boots, feeling the familiar weight of authority combined with solitude. Shadow rose slowly, legs wobbly, ears flicking toward the distant rumble of a snowplow. He sniffed the air, pawed lightly at the snow-dusted floor, then pressed closer to Logan's side. The puppy's tentative choice to follow reflected the first true step in trust, and Logan smiled softly, knowing these small gestures meant more than words. They left the trailer, stepping into the sparkling white world outside. Each breath formed clouds in the crisp winter air. Snowflakes clung to eyelashes and brows, and the frozen ground crunched beneath their boots and paws. Logan let Shadow walk freely, no leash for now. The puppy hesitated at first, then took a tentative step forward, glancing back frequently. Logan spoke softly, a low, steady hum, coaxing the puppy with his presence alone. Shadow's fur glistened under the diffuse morning light, his gray-black coat dotted with frost. He paused at every new scent, a pine branch, a patch of disturbed snow, the faint traces of other dogs, and Logan observed patiently, letting Shadow explore on his own terms. Each cautious sniff, each hesitant paw, was a dialogue without words. Logan felt the tight coil of grief in his chest loosen a little. Caring for Shadow demanded presence, attention, and patience, and for the first time in years, Logan's mind was fully anchored in the moment. They wandered through the trailer park and along the edges of the town. Rusted cars peeked from beneath thick snowdrifts, and smoke curled lazily from chimneys. Children's laughter echoed faintly from behind snow-covered fences, distant yet comforting. Shadow's ears twitched at every sound, but he walked steadily by Logan's side, occasionally nudging against his legs for reassurance. The trust between them deepened not through commands or leashes, but through shared steps and silent understanding. By mid-morning, they reached a small clearing between two streets, a patch of uneven snow-laden grass where stray cats often slinked and crows picked at leftovers. Logan crouched, letting Shadow approach the center of the clearing first. The pup hesitated, his tail low but quivering. Logan whispered, "Go ahead, Shadow. Explore. I'm right here." For the first time, Shadow stepped fully into the open, sniffing the grass, pawing at a snow-dusted twig. Logan watched, silently cheering, heart swelling with a mixture of pride and relief. Shadow's first playful yelp sounded like a bell in the still air. He leaped awkwardly, his paws slipping on the icy patches, tumbling slightly, then springing back up with renewed determination. Logan laughed softly, the sound warm in the cold morning. "Good boy, Shadow. You're all right," he murmured. The puppy wagged his tail in response, the motion slow but deliberate, as if testing the limits of joy he hadn't allowed himself to feel in months. The bond continued to deepen throughout the day. Shadow learned the rhythms of Logan's movements, following him without fear, occasionally brushing his head against Logan's hand, seeking warmth. Logan, in turn, adapted to the puppy's hesitations, responding with patience instead of frustration. When Shadow flinched at a sudden gust of wind or the distant honk of a snowplow, Logan would kneel, extend a hand, and let Shadow choose whether to retreat or accept comfort. Gradually, the trembling eased, replaced by tentative curiosity. Lunch brought another small ritual. Logan prepared a bowl of soft scrambled eggs for Shadow and set it beside fresh water. Shadow approached slowly, sniffed, then began eating in careful bites, occasionally pausing to look up at Logan, ensuring the stability he craved remained present. Each shared glance and cautious step built a rhythm between them, a mutual understanding that went beyond spoken language. Logan thought of Danny, of the warmth of guiding a small hand through snow-covered streets, and felt a pang of longing softened by hope. As afternoon deepened, the sky grayed further, snowflakes thickening. Logan led Shadow to a trail winding up behind the trailer park, through towering pines bent with snow. Shadow bounded over small drifts, his movements growing more confident, though still awkward. He would occasionally stop, paw at the snow, then glance at Logan as if to ask permission to continue, and Logan would nod, smiling beneath his scarf. The puppy's confidence grew in small increments, paw by paw, sniff by sniff, leap by leap. Returning to the trailer as the sun dipped behind mountains, Logan noted subtle changes. Shadow's tail was higher, movements lighter, ears no longer pinned back with constant tension. The bond, fragile in the morning, had solidified into a rhythm, Shadow choosing trust, Logan choosing patience and presence. Inside, the trailer seemed warmer. The heater hummed, casting a soft glow over the snow-dusted floors and the threadbare couch that had become Shadow's resting place. Evening came quietly. Logan set a small bowl of water and some food near Shadow's spot, then moved to his chair with a cup of coffee. Shadow approached cautiously, sniffing, then settled near Logan's feet, his teddy bear tucked beside him. Logan observed, noting each subtle movement, the slow relaxation of muscles, the soft huff of breath, the occasional nuzzle. Shadow was learning to feel safe, not just physically but emotionally. As darkness deepened, Logan lit a single lamp, shadows dancing on the walls. Shadow curled beside the couch, rested his head on his paws, teddy bear always within reach. Logan reached down occasionally, brushing his fingers along the fur, allowing Shadow to initiate contact. Each interaction was a negotiation of trust, a slow building of confidence. Logan's own heart, long closed by grief and solitude, began to thaw in response. By nightfall, a quiet routine had formed. Shadow would explore cautiously, eat and drink with care, retreat to the couch or comforter, and occasionally seek Logan's presence. Logan would watch, speak softly, and let the puppy guide the pace. In the silence of a silver pine winter, amidst swirling snow outside, a small miracle had taken root. Two souls, wounded in different ways, learning to heal together. The snow fell heavier outside, muffling the world beyond the trailer walls. Inside, Shadow finally curled fully against Logan's side, head resting against his knee. Logan extended a hand, letting the puppy decide whether to press closer or remain in place. Slowly, Shadow shifted, nudged the hand with his nose, and pressed gently against it. Logan exhaled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest, a quiet reassurance that, despite the cold and past losses, hope could exist in small, deliberate steps. As the lamp flickered, Logan whispered, "We'll get through this together, Shadow, one step at a time." The puppy's tail thumped lightly against the floor, a small but deliberate affirmation. Outside, the town lay quiet beneath the fresh snow, indifferent yet beautiful. But within the walls of the trailer, warmth, trust, and fragile joy had begun to take hold. The next morning, Silver Pine awoke to a sky swollen with gray clouds, the heavy snow settling quietly over rooftops and streets. Logan Pierce stepped outside, snow crunching under his boots, Shadow padding closely beside him. The puppy's coat had begun to lose some of its frost and grime, though patches of gray-black fur remained matted. Shadow's mismatched eyes scanned the environment warily, ears twitching at every rustle of snow-laden branches or distant car. Yet, for the first time in weeks, he moved with a cautious confidence, tail low but wagging at subtle intervals. Logan led Shadow along the same trail they had walked the day before, a narrow path between the trailer park and the edge of the forest. The morning air was crisp and biting, yet the calm of snowfall muffled sounds, creating a sanctuary where trust could slowly take root. Logan felt a fragile peace settle over him. Shadow was learning, adapting, and choosing to remain close, not forced, not commanded, but by choice. It was a victory measured in tiny steps, yet it carried weight far greater than any he had experienced on patrol. As they rounded a bend near an old fence, a movement caught Logan's eye. A man stood there, partially obscured by the trees, hand gripping a damp, folded flyer. He was in his mid-40s, heavy-set, with a worn baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His expression was tight with anger, or perhaps frustration. Logan couldn't tell which. The man's breath formed clouds in the cold air as he stepped forward, voice raised, breaking the quiet of the snow-draped morning. "I know you have my dog," the man barked, stamping his boots. Snow dislodged from his shoulders, scattering into the powder below. Shadow froze, ears pinned back, body trembling violently. Logan's heart tightened. He had anticipated challenges, but seeing Shadow shrink against the cold ground ignited something protective deep inside him. Logan held a hand up calmly. "Shadow, that's his name. He's safe with me." His voice was low but firm, carrying authority tempered by compassion. The man stepped closer, scowling. "He's not yours. I lost him last week. That German shepherd, he's mine." Shadow whimpered, crouching closer to Logan's legs. The little bear was tucked under his paw as always, a relic of comfort from a past unknown. Logan knelt, lowering himself to the puppy's level, hand extended but not touching, allowing Shadow to choose his response. Shadow's body trembled violently, but he stayed pressed against Logan. Logan whispered softly, "It's okay, Shadow. I've got you." The man's eyes narrowed, frustration palpable. "I'll take him back. That's my dog," he shouted. Snow swirled around them in the gust, lifting flurries into the air like tiny specters dancing between the trees. Logan noticed Shadow flinch with every word, his small frame pressed tightly against Logan's leg. It wasn't fear of Logan Shadow had come to trust him. It was the sudden reminder of abandonment, of previous owners who had failed him. Logan's jaw tightened. He could feel the old anger rise, the same bitterness he had learned to contain for years, now channeled into protection. Shadow had endured enough. He wasn't just property to be claimed. He was a living creature, vulnerable and dependent. Logan's eyes met the man's, calm but unwavering. "I found him abandoned in the snow," Logan said, each word deliberate. "He wasn't lost. Someone left him. He's not going anywhere with you." The man's face twisted. "You think I abandoned him? I lost him. I've been looking for him." Logan shook his head slowly. "Shadow doesn't belong to anyone who would leave him in the cold. He chose me today. He trusts me, and I trust him to make it through another night without fear. That's what matters right now." For a tense moment, the man didn't respond, scanning Shadow's shivering body. Shadow lifted his head slightly, ears still pinned back, blue and brown eyes flicking between Logan and the stranger. Logan could see the faint flicker of decision forming in the pup's mind. The choice wasn't spoken, wasn't commanded. It was instinctual, rooted in safety and trust. Shadow stayed. He stayed with Logan. The man cursed under his breath, muttering words Logan could barely hear, then finally stormed off, the rustling of snow-laden branches marking his departure. Shadow sagged, trembling, but did not move from Logan's side. Logan wrapped an arm gently around him, careful not to startle, letting the warmth of his coat seep into the little body. "It's okay, Shadow," he murmured, voice soft. "You're not going anywhere." They returned to the trailer, footsteps muffled by thick snow. Shadow stayed pressed against Logan, head tucked under his chin, eyes half-lidded in exhaustion. Logan set him down gently on the couch, still holding the little bear. The puppy nestled in, curling protectively around the toy, a gesture of both comfort and reclaiming his territory in the safety of Logan's home. Logan removed his boots and coat, shaking off the snow, his mind racing with thoughts of what the morning had brought. He realized that the encounter had tested both him and Shadow in ways words could not capture. Shadow's choice to stay, despite fear and past trauma, was a small but profound declaration of trust. Logan sat heavily in his chair, rubbing his face, feeling the weight of responsibility and a strange warmth at having been chosen too. The day unfolded slowly. Shadow explored the trailer cautiously, pawing at corners, sniffing furniture, then retreating to the couch. Logan moved around, speaking softly, offering food and water, occasionally brushing tangles from Shadow's coat. Each small interaction, each shared moment, reinforced the fragile trust. Shadow no longer flinched at Logan's presence. He began to lean into it. By afternoon, the snow outside thickened, the town muffled in white silence. Logan sat near the window, watching Shadow paw at the remaining flakes drifting under the porch. He sipped coffee slowly, feeling a sense of calm he hadn't known in years. The tension of the morning had eased. Shadow had made his choice, and Logan knew the battle for his trust was only beginning, but that first step was monumental. Evening brought long shadows across the floor as the lamp flickered low. Shadow lay curled by the couch, teddy bear tucked beneath his chin, occasionally lifting his head to glance at Logan. Logan reached down, allowing the pup to initiate contact. Shadow nudged his hand softly, tail thumping faintly against the floor. Logan exhaled, letting himself feel the warmth that came from mutual trust. Night fell, and the trailer settled into quiet. Snow rumbled softly against the roof, the world outside cloaked in frozen stillness. Shadow shifted, resting his head on Logan's knee, paws curled beneath him. Logan whispered again, "You're safe here, Shadow. Nobody's going to hurt you." The puppy's body trembled once, then relaxed fully, a tiny sigh escaping in gratitude and relief. For Logan, the morning had been a trial, a confrontation with both human and animal fears. For Shadow, it had been a test of instincts, trust, and choice. Both had emerged with a deeper understanding of one another. Outside, Silverpine was cold and indifferent, yet within the walls of the small trailer, warmth and protection had taken root. Logan looked at the little creature curled in the couch, teddy bear still pressed against his paw, and knew they had survived the first challenge together. They would face the rest of the winter together, slowly building trust, step by step. The snow continued its relentless fall over Silverpine, draping the small mountain town in a thick, muffling blanket. Inside his trailer, Logan Pierce sat at the small table, Shadow curled at his feet, teddy bear tucked beneath a paw. Logan's hands hovered over a stack of papers, notes, veterinary records, photographs of Shadow's raw paws and scarred neck, even a detailed diagram of the exact location where he had found the puppy. Each sheet represented months of life, care, and trauma, condensed into evidence for a battle that Logan had never anticipated. Shadow lifted his head, mismatched eyes blinking up at Logan with quiet curiosity. The blue eye reflected the muted light from the snow outside. The brown one held depth, wisdom beyond his months. The puppy had grown noticeably stronger since Logan had first rescued him, but the scars remained, a testament to the cruelty he had endured. Logan gently brushed a finger along Shadow's spine. "We're going to make sure no one ever does this to you again," he whispered. Logan made a call to Denise, a local volunteer with a sharp gaze and fierce determination who had worked with rescued animals for years. Denise, mid-30s, tall, wiry, with a voice that could cut through chaos like steel, answered on the first ring. Logan explained the situation, the abandoned puppy, the encounter with the supposed former owner, the flyer pressed into the snow. Denise listened intently, asking probing questions about the puppy's condition, his behavior, and the timeline of events. "You're right," she said finally. "We can build a case. Bring Shadow to the shelter. We'll document everything: photos, videos, veterinary records, witness statements if necessary. If this goes to court, every detail counts." Her voice carried a mix of urgency and reassurance. Logan felt a flicker of hope he hadn't experienced since that morning when he first found Shadow buried in snow and debris. The drive to the shelter was quiet, the only sound the soft whine of Shadow from time to time, punctuated by the rhythmic crunch of tires on packed snow. Shadow pressed his head against the window, nostrils flaring as the world outside blurred past in white and gray streaks. Logan could feel the little pup's tension, the faint reminder of past abandonment, and spoke softly. "It's okay, buddy. Nobody's going to hurt you here." At the shelter, they were met by a team who moved with practiced care. Volunteers knelt to greet Shadow, letting him approach on his own terms. Logan watched as the puppy sniffed cautiously, then leaned into a gentle hand, allowing his body to relax for the first time in weeks. Denise directed the volunteers, photographs of raw paws, close-ups of the faint ring around Shadow's neck, and detailed notes about the puppy's demeanor and responses. Each image captured more than injury. It documented the resilience and trust Shadow was beginning to build. Logan spent hours with the team, recounting every step of Shadow's rescue. He explained the condition of the trailer, the sequence of events, and the morning the supposed owner had appeared. Each detail, meticulously recorded, became a brick in the foundation of their case. Shadow remained calm throughout, occasionally nudging Logan's hand, reminding him why this fight was personal. By evening, Logan posted Shadow's story online, accompanied by photographs of the little German shepherd curled around his teddy bear, eyes wide and wary, yet shining with a glimmer of hope. He shared the truth: abandoned, found in snow, rescued, and now facing a challenge to remain safe. He asked not for donations, not for pity, but simply for visibility, so that people might understand what it meant for a creature to be abandoned, and the responsibility that followed. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Comments poured in from strangers, neighbors, and animal lovers. Offers of legal advice, promises to help monitor the situation, emotional support, and stories of their own lost or rescued animals. A pinned comment read, "He's not just your dog now. He's ours too. We're with you." Logan read through them quietly, heart swelling. Shadow, stretched across the small patch of sunlight in the shelter's entryway, blinked lazily at him. Teddy bear still in paw, unaware of the growing army of supporters rallying for his protection. In the following days, Logan, Denise, and a volunteer attorney named Marcus, mid-40s, meticulous, calm under pressure, and known for his dogged advocacy, built the case meticulously. Witness statements were gathered from neighbors who had observed Shadow wandering alone before his rescue. Medical records from the vet documented malnourishment, scrapes, and the scarred neck. Every photograph, every statement, every note from Logan's journal became part of a legal shield, proof of the puppy's abandonment and Logan's consistent care. Shadow, in the meantime, grew bolder within the shelter and trailer routines. Each day, Logan walked him through the surrounding snow-laden woods, teaching him subtle commands, reinforcing trust, and letting the puppy explore freely. Snowballs became toys, footprints in the fresh snow became paths of discovery, and every shared moment reinforced the bond Logan had worked tirelessly to nurture. Shadow's confidence flourished alongside the preparation for the coming legal battle, and Logan realized that every step forward for the puppy mirrored a step forward in his own healing. One morning, after a fresh snowfall, Logan arrived at the trailer to find a flurry of packages stacked on the porch: dog food, blankets, toys, and a brand new bed. A small sticky note on the top box simply read, "For Shadow, because he deserves the world." Logan felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. Shadow sniffed the packages, tail swishing in a slow, steady rhythm, eyes wide and gleaming with cautious curiosity. Logan unpacked them slowly, each item a testament to the growing community supporting their cause. The social media post had gone viral. Messages from strangers recounted their own experiences of rescue and loss, each message a ripple of hope echoing through the tiny town. Logan read each note quietly, Shadow curled nearby, watching the falling snow through the window, unaware of the larger battle being fought for his future. As the week progressed, Logan, Denise, and Marcus made appointments with experts, veterinarians, animal behaviorists, and local advocates. Shadow underwent a full examination. Injuries were documented, his gentle temperament and resilience noted. Each evaluation built a compelling case. Shadow was not merely a possession, but a living being deserving of care, love, and protection. Logan watched the puppy respond to gentle hands, feeling his small body lean into trust again, a stark contrast to the trembling creature he had rescued weeks before. Evenings were filled with careful preparations. Logan read to Shadow from old paperbacks, stories of adventure and survival, his voice rough but steady. Shadow's ears perked, head tilted, absorbing the words. Logan realized these quiet rituals mattered. Every calm moment, every gentle interaction, fortified the foundation for the trust Shadow had begun to place in him. The snow continued to fall heavily outside Silver Pine, draping the trailer in quiet white isolation. Within, Logan and Shadow sat together on the threadbare couch. The little bear remained tucked between Shadow's paws, though he occasionally set it aside to nuzzle Logan's hand. The fight for legal custody was looming, but the bond they had forged was undeniable. Two wounded souls preparing to face the world, standing side by side against the storm, both literal and metaphorical. Snow fell steadily over Silver Pine, a silent gray blanket softening the edges of the small mountain town. The trailer park, usually quiet under the winter sun, now glimmered under the muted light, every rooftop and fence line coated in fresh white powder. Logan Pierce's truck crunched over the icy roads as he drove toward the courthouse. Shadow perched cautiously beside him in the passenger seat. The little German shepherd, tail wagging slowly, nose pressed against the window, had grown noticeably stronger over the past weeks. His gray-black coat had regained some luster, and his once raw paws had begun to heal. Yet those mismatched eyes, one icy blue, one deep brown, still held a depth of experience that belied his months. Inside Logan's chest, anticipation and anxiety warred with pride. Shadow had endured so much, survived the cold, abandonment, and now the looming human claims. Logan's mind flashed back to the morning he had found Shadow in the snow, trembling, clutching his battered teddy bear. Every step since then, every bite of food, every cautious walk through the snow had been preparation for this moment, the legal fight to ensure Shadow's safety and to recognize the bond they had built. The courthouse doors creaked as Logan entered, Shadow following on a leash for the first time, his small form alert but composed. Logan's attorney, Marcus, was already inside, laying out the documents, photographs of Shadow's injuries, veterinary records, witness statements from neighbors, and video logs of Shadow's behavior in Logan's care. Denise stood beside them, clipboard in hand, her eyes bright with determination. Together, they formed a quiet but formidable team, armed not just with evidence, but with the collective will of a community that had rallied behind Shadow. The courtroom was small, the winter light filtering through frosted windows, casting long, pale shadows. The man who claimed to be Shadow's former owner entered, heavy-set and grim, suit slightly wrinkled, hands clenched. His face bore impatience, anger, and a sense of entitlement. Yet Logan noticed the absence of affection. No warmth, no recognition of the creature before him, only a desire for possession. Shadow remained calm, sitting beside Logan, ears flicking, tail low but steady. The puppy sensed the tension, but trust in Logan anchored him. The judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes softened by experience, called the proceedings to order. Logan's turn came first. He did not rely on notes, though Marcus had meticulously prepared them. Logan spoke from the heart, recounting the morning he had found Shadow buried in snow, weak, frightened, and alone. He described the puppy's injuries, the abandoned state, the daily care he had provided, and the emotional connection that had grown between them. His voice was steady, but each word carried weight, resonating with the room. Shadow lifted his head, one paw resting lightly on Logan's knee, as if affirming the truth in every statement. Logan spoke of the morning when the man had come, demanding Shadow back, and how the puppy had trembled yet stayed close, choosing trust over fear. The judge leaned forward, listening intently, her gaze shifting between Logan, Shadow, and the man whose anger had brought them here. Logan's words were not just argument, they were testimony of care, love, and commitment. Marcus presented the evidence, photographs of Shadow's paws and neck, veterinary records showing malnourishment and injury, statements from neighbors confirming the puppy had been left alone and abandoned. Denise spoke to Shadow's behavior, noting how the puppy responded to Logan's presence, demonstrated trust, and had become calm and confident under consistent care. The presentation painted a picture not of ownership, but of guardianship, and of a life that had been nurtured after near destruction. The man's attorney attempted to argue technicalities, that the flyer indicated ownership, that Shadow had been lost, and that Logan had no legal right to claim custody. But the room seemed to favor facts over technicalities. The judge's eyes softened as she examined Shadow, sitting quietly beside Logan, the teddy bear tucked securely under one paw. Shadow's gaze, calm and trusting, spoke volumes about the bond they shared. After a short recess, the judge returned. The silence in the courtroom was thick, punctuated only by the distant murmur of snow against the windows. She addressed the man first, her tone firm but measured. "You abandoned this dog," she said simply. "He was left without care, without warmth, and without the protection that he needed. That is not a matter of technical ownership. It is a matter of welfare and trust." Turning to Logan, her expression softened. "Logan Pierce, you have demonstrated consistent care, commitment, and love. The evidence shows that Shadow has formed a bond with you based on trust and protection. Therefore, in the eyes of this court, you are granted full legal custody of Shadow. A wave of relief and disbelief washed over Logan. Shadow twitched his tail slowly, nudging against Logan's leg, seemingly aware that the burden of fear had been lifted. The man, scowling, muttered under his breath and exited the courtroom. Logan knelt, cupping Shadow's face in his hands. "We did it, kid," he whispered. Shadow leaned in, licking Logan's nose gently, a quiet but profound acknowledgement. Outside, the snow continued to fall, crisp and white, softening the edges of Silverpine. Logan carried Shadow to the truck, letting the puppy's paws press into the freshly fallen snow. Shadow bounded forward, exploring with a joyous abandon that had been absent for months, eyes bright and tail wagging. Logan laughed softly, feeling a lightness in his chest he hadn't known since before the winter that had taken his wife. Back at the trailer, the small home that had witnessed their first tentative steps together, Shadow settled onto the couch, Teddy Bear nestled under his paw. Logan unpacked the packages from the community dog food, blankets, toys, and a new bed, all gestures of support from strangers who had come to know Shadow's story. Shadow sniffed each item cautiously, then claimed the bed with a tentative leap, tail wagging in pride. Days passed in a rhythm now familiar. Walks through snow-laden trails, quiet mornings by the window, evenings curled up with books and the soft hum of the heater. Shadow thrived, his playful yelps echoing through the trailer, paws leaving tracks on the frosted floor. Logan watched, heart swelling with the understanding that rescue was not just about saving a life, it was about creating space for joy, trust, and belonging. Neighbors began to recognize them as they walked through the town. Children waved, calling Shadow's name, tossing snowballs and improvised toys. Shadow responded with gentle enthusiasm, never overzealous, always measured, reflecting the care and training he had received. Logan handed out treats to other dogs along the way, teaching the town's community to extend kindness beyond individual ownership. In the evenings, Logan and Shadow would sit by the window, snow drifting silently outside, the teddy bear occasionally at Shadow's side but no longer clutched obsessively. Shadow had learned that he was safe, loved, and part of something bigger than himself. Logan traced patterns on the frosted glass, reflecting on the journey from that first day in the snow to this quiet, victorious moment. As night deepened, Logan whispered softly, "We're home now, kid. Home and safe." Shadow lifted his head, mismatched eyes catching the light from the lamp, gaze steady and trusting. Logan felt a profound sense of completeness. The battle was over, the bond was solidified, and winter, once cold and harsh, now held warmth born from resilience, love, and shared survival. The snow continued to fall over Silverpine, silent and white. But inside Logan's trailer, warmth, trust, and joy filled every corner. Shadow, once abandoned and fearful, now thrived, a living testament to hope and the power of choosing love. Logan, too, had found healing, discovering that sometimes the greatest miracles are quiet, patient, and found in the eyes of a small, resilient creature curled at your side. As the snow settled silently over Silverpine, Shadow lifted his head, eyes meeting Logan's with a look of pure trust and joy. The little teddy bear no longer needed to be clutched. It was a relic of a past hardship now replaced by love, warmth, and safety. Logan wrapped his arms around Shadow, feeling the steady heartbeat of a soul that had survived, and he whispered softly, "This is your home, kid. Safe and loved forever." In that moment, Logan felt it, the quiet miracle of God at work, in the survival of a tiny, abandoned life and the healing of a broken heart. Sometimes the greatest miracles are not thunderous or bright. They are found in patience, care, and the courage to love again. Just as God watches over the lost and weary, we too can be vessels of hope and protection, even in small, everyday acts. If Shadow's journey touched your heart, share this story with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment, tell us where you are watching from, and subscribe to follow more stories of courage, love, and second chances. May God bless you and your loved ones, and if you believe in the power of love and miracles, type Amen in the comments.